went to a Boston University as an acting major, and after 2 years there, I thought to myself, this is not for me. So I went across the street to the directing and film school, which I liked a lot better. And what was interesting about that for me was that I was able to take the actors that I had worked with over in the acting department and bring them over to make films with them. The odd part about that was that the school didn't care about actors. Film school doesn't care about actors. They care about lighting and the camera and all of those things. But I kind of wanted to work with actors. That was my thing. I liked doing that. And I was really pretty good at, picking actors that I felt like were talented and had something special. So I made a lot of films. I made films with Jason Alexander. He was my classmate, so I made films with him. I also made films with a gal. I made about 8 films with her. Her name was Julie Smith, and one day it was a winter blizzard in Boston, and we went out to Boston Park, and we filmed because I thought that was very exciting to do, be able to do that. It was kind of a romantic comedy spoof, and instead of the crashing waves, I decided to make angels in the snow. And in the middle of the shoot, which was freezing, by the way, and her castmate, who was a guy, was like, "This is freezing out here," but she was like, "This is what she was meant to do." I went up to her and I said to her, "Julie, someday you're going to be a star." And she said, "Someday I'm going to be the next Meryl Streep." And Julie Smith turned into Julianne Moore. And Julianne Moore, walking down the red carpet with Meryl Streep and seeing that, and knowing that that girl had faith in herself, that she could do what she wanted to do. And, she is the new Meryl Streep. But after I left college, I went to, I actually was the kid in film school who had the job in Los Angeles, which was the coolest thing to have. So I was going to leave Boston, film school and go to Los Angeles and start my career as in the film business or TV business. And on the way there, basically, there was a writers and directors strike. So I got the call saying, "Not going to work out. You might as well go back home to New York," and which I did. And what happened there is that I ended up getting a job as an assistant agent at a big boutique agency called Writers and Artists, which had a lot of stars at the time. And I became an assistant agent. And I was there for about 6 months. What happened to me there, which was interesting, is that I found like I really dug working with actors. And I also found that I was really good at scouting talent. I was going out to showcases and I would meet actors and I would bring them back. At one point, after 6 months of being an assistant agent, I just went to another agency and said, "I have all these new actors that I found and you want to hire me as an agent." So at 22 in New York, I was an agent. And I discovered Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc, Christopher Maloney, Jerry O'Connell, Terry Polo. There's a whole list of people that I worked with that obviously have gone on to be very successful. And after about doing that for 8 years, I thought to myself that I still had the need and desire to write, to direct, to do something along those lines. And so I left being an agent and I went to LA to, basically write comedy, because that was my thing. I liked to write comedy. And in the meantime, as a survival job, I got to work as a casting director at Danny Goldman Casting, which at the time was the biggest casting office in Los Angeles. And that was interesting to me because as an agent, I would send you out and then I would hear how you did. But as a casting director, I was actually seeing what you did in the room. It was really interesting to me because I got to see why people made their choices, why people succeeded in the audition, why they did well and why people didn't do well, why people did well and then they got a call back and self-sabotage themselves because of fear. It was very interesting for me to see that interaction, and I did that for a while. I also would stand in front of the camera, so I was able to, I learned to teach and direct in front of the camera as the actor was standing in front of me. At that time, I decided that that I wasn't giving my all to writing, because I think in order to be successful in this town, you have to have talent, confidence, and perseverance. And I feel like I had the talent and the confidence. I just didn't have the drive, maybe because I was into this whole new thing of casting, so I wasn't doing what I needed to do, which an artist needs to do on a regular basis. And at the same time, I started coaching people, mainly some of the people that I worked with when they were when I represented them as agents, and one particular young lady who was going on a sitcom, and I coached her and she got it. So that kind of started to establish me as an acting coach. And then 14 years ago, I opened a studio in Larchmont, an acting studio. I had no students, but I actually had 10 students, and one of them was Josh DeMille. And he did very well quickly, so that kind of put me on the map. Plus, I worked really hard. I felt like I was investing in the one person who I could invest in and believed in. I believed in myself. I believed that I could be really good at coaching and working with actors. I also was one of the first coaches to actually have the camera in the studio. And because I was used to that as the casting director, I would have them in front of the camera. So I taught a lot of audition tech. I taught them how to audition, because from the business aspect of an agent, I was able to help them with how they looked, their marketability, who they were, what their essence was, from an outside point of view. And then I was able to, give them the craft of acting as well. I merged both of those together, which was rare at the time, and perhaps still is. That's what I do. That's what I'm able to do. I take my years as being an agent and my years as being a casting director, and I merge it with the craft of acting. So one of the things I do a lot of is audition tech. But we would do these main scenes, and then I would do something called quick bits. And the quick bits, which have become quite well known, especially anyone who's ever taken my classes, is we used to do comedy. And I really liked to do quick bits with comedy. And it was interesting to me because I would give someone a character, and if their essence matched that character, and I could kind of teach them how to work the joke, it all came together. But if I gave somebody a character and the character was, let's say, cynical and pessimistic, but this person was really hopeful and optimistic, it didn't mesh. But if I gave that person who had an essence of cynicism about themselves, someone who was a little more wiser, and I gave them a character that had that, they were able to naturally merge into that character and even understand the jokes better. So I kind of started to work with comedy a lot more. And finally, I came up with a method of how to do comedy. And that is how I came up with the book, The 8 Characters of Comedy, which is, it's interesting, The 8 Characters of Comedy. It started off in a time period when there was no comedy. That was like 2005. I came out with a big comedy book and there was no comedy. It wasn't really the greatest thing, but it was interesting because it started to catch as it went along, because not only was it the only book on the market that actually taught actors how to do comedy, but it also had the 8 characters of comedy, which helped actors find themselves within the archetypes of comedy. I traced the archetypes of comedy all the way back to the advent of television. So it was a nice merging of how to do a specific method of comedy with finding yourself within the 8 characters of comedy. And I've coined a lot of different phrases like the turnaround joke, I like your shirt, but not on you, those kind of jokes, which is very common amongst, in a lot of sitcoms. And that has really exploded. The book has exploded. It's in 75 colleges and universities, used as a textbook. It's been on #1 acting book lists for a long time. It's big on Amazon. So I'm proud of it. What happened with the book that is interesting is that not only was it a really good book for actors, obviously, and they could come and take my class, the One-Day Comedy Intensive, but writers started to use the book, which, even though it's called The 8 Characters, The Comedy Guide to Sitcom Acting and Writing, it's really mostly geared towards actors. It was my friend who's a big comedy writer, said, I think you should put writers in there too, so I did. So a few years after I published the book, I started to get emails from writers saying, I'm writing my spec script and I'm using your book as a guide. It's a great book about characterizations. Then the next year I'd get that same writer saying, I got a job, I'm a staff writer on a sitcom. Then the next year I'm a story editor, and then the next year would be co-executive producer, and all of a sudden they have a show And they're the showrunner, they're the executive producer of a show. What's neat about that, at least for me and the actors that I've worked with, is that when you've worked the method and you've worked the characterizations, then you go into one of these comedy. And right now, comedy is bigger than it's ever been in 15 years. This is the biggest comedy pilot scene that it's ever been. And so when an actor goes in, this has happened recently, actor would go in for a call and then they would get a call back on that and the writer would be there. And after the actor's finished, the writer would go, "Lovable Loser, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he would look at the actor's resume and say, "Scott Sedita's book's my Bible." Okay, so that's cool, that makes me feel good, but what makes me feel even better is the fact that the producer and the actor are talking the same language. They're understanding the same thing. It gives the producer confidence that this actor not only understands comedy, but understands characterizations. And I think that's pretty cool. If I could do that and help actors get jobs doing that, that would be really great. So after I wrote the 8 characters of comedy, I would do a lot of touring with the book. I would do a lot of talks. And I ended up doing a lot of motivational speeches about the business. And the reason I did that is because of my unusual background of being an agent and a casting director and an acting coach. Because those perspectives gave me, it was an odd perspective for me because I got to see what it was sending you out. I got to see what happened when you came into the office, into the casting room, and I also got to see when I coached you. So I had done all 3 of those, and that's how I came up with my book, Scott Sedita's Guide to Making It in Hollywood: 3 Steps to Success, 3 Steps to Failure. It's the 3 steps to failure part of that I think is the most interesting part of it. I've never been so busy in the pilot season than I am now, so I feel blessed about that. The funny thing about it is that and I say this to actors as well, and I said this to a bunch of casting directors and agents when I went out to dinner with them, and this is really what you need to be doing. Either you're working at the work that you got, or you're working at getting work. That is exactly what needs to be going on. You're either working at the work that you got, or you're working at getting the work. Because that is a natural flow, and that is a momentum that it's starting. And you want to keep that momentum. Any business, small business, and that's what actors basically have to have. They have to have a small business, and they're investing in themselves, and they have to market themselves. That's why actors, it's really important for them to know who they are. That is a major problem sometimes with actors, besides the fact that some of them don't like to train as much as they should. But is that some of them don't know who they are and where they belong. They don't have and I really believe that understanding who you are permeates throughout the process, from agent meetings to casting director auditions. So it's a really important aspect of finding that out for yourself. Actually, in my book, the Scott Sedita's Guide to Making It in Hollywood, I have something called the typing game that I've been doing for years and years. And I know like a lot of other people are starting to do that now. But it's an opportunity for actors to be given adjectives from 14 other actors that they don't know about themselves. I interview you for like 3 minutes, and then the class behind you on camera, and the class writes about 3 or 4 adjectives about you. It's just an opportunity. It's just a door open for actors to go, oh, wow, that's what people say about me? And sometimes they don't like the negative, like edgy or cocky or bitchy or something like that, but that's all good. I mean, that's because characters in television and film have to have negative traits. Otherwise, you just want to hear charming and funny and sweet. That's a commercial. And that's nothing wrong with that either. But for more complex roles on television and film, you gotta have the positive and the negative adjectives there, because it's part of your characteristics and essence. So the Scott Sedita's Guide to Making It in Hollywood: 3 Steps to Success, 3 Steps to Failure. Right. The 3 steps to success is what I previously talked about, which is talent. And here's how this particular book has gotten a little controversial or provocative about this idea. And this is my belief. My belief is that you're born with the talent to act, or the talent to sing. I mean, if American Idol has taught us anything, or any of those shows that have those singing shows, especially in the audition portion, if they don't have the talent to sing, they'll never have the talent to sing. It doesn't matter how much critique or criticism or what Simon Cowell will say to you. The fact is, if you're not born with that talent, and I believe you're born with the talent to act, then you have to practice. You have to say at some point I am born with the talent to act. Do I choose to use that as my profession? And if you do choose to use it as your profession, then you have to hold yourself accountable for that. and responsible for making that a career. And actors sometimes don't understand that because they're sensitive artists. And there's actually no path for them. There's no blueprint like someone who went to medical school or law school, where you do that, and then you go to grad school, and then you go to medical school, you get clerkship, you get your internship. There is a blueprint of going about it. But artists, actors, singers, dancers, they don't have that blueprint. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book. The other one is confidence, having confidence not only in yourself, but having confidence in your talent. And the only way to have confidence in your talent is to be working your talent. What? Yes, you need to work your talent. It's like playing tennis, right? I mean, if you play tennis more and more every day and work that, you feel more confident about playing tennis. And the third one is perseverance. And, that's difficult because actors have to put themselves out there. Perseverance is something you'll deal with your whole life. Your whole life as an actor, because you could be on a TV series and have 6 years on a TV series and then nothing, and there could be years go by and going, where are those offers to go back to doing it? You have to reboot, you have to remarket, you have to do something, and that's what actors need to do all the time. They have to constantly reboot themselves, they have to constantly remarket, they have to constantly work at their acting career. The 3 steps of success really I talk about the want in the first half of the book because I really believe the want is really important. Not only important into working on your audition sides, what does my character want, but it's also important to translate that want into your career. What do I want? What you want is to be a successful actor. How do you do that is the question. And I think that there's been many books about what that path is and how can you do that and how you can be successful. I guess what makes mine different is the 3 steps to failure, because with every want there has to be an obstacle, and that obstacle is fear, and that is what stops actors. It stops them in their tracks, it pushes them off their path, it procrastinates them from doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the fear manifests into the 3 steps to failure, which is addictions, distractions, and wrong actions. Actors need to give themselves challenges on a regular basis, and that could simply mean to find an agent, to send pictures and resumes out. They constantly need to be doing that. They constantly need to be working at their career as well as working at their craft. But it's easy for actors not to do it. It's easy because there's no rules, there's no guideline, there's no hours that says that you have to be here at this time and you need to be doing that. Now, when you come to auditions, of course, you have to be at a certain place. But it's that in-between time that actors need to fill up. And what they need to fill it up with is not video games and television, unless television is research, but is actually working on their career. And the way to work on your career, and I talk a lot about it in the book, but one of the main things you need to do for yourself, in my book I call it a CAG, a call to action group, and I think that is a really great way because it makes it easier. It's so much better to do something with somebody else, with a group of other people. It holds you accountable and responsible for doing it. It kicks your ass to get yourself into gear. It says, what have you done this week for your career? And I think it's important to have that support system because you get things done, mailings, casting director showcases, agent manager, all that stuff that you need to do. Getting your pictures done, getting the picture that's right for you, which is a big thing actors have a problem with. One of the reasons actors have a problem with pictures, by the way, is because some of them, besides the fact they might not get a good photographer, or I don't know, whatever, I think most photographers are pretty good, but is because they're not sure who they are and what they're trying to present, how they're marketing themselves. They need to know. I mean, commercially, I think actors have a better idea, but theatrically, because commercially is just kind of these slots that you'd want to fill in, from young mom to girl next door. They do have that, and the funny guy. But theatrically, it's not just the girl next door. It's the girl next door who could be something else underneath it. It's not just the good-looking guy who seems to be the jock football player. It could be the good-looking guy who's a vampire. So which is very popular as well on CSI shows, is the good-looking guy who ends up looking like he can get all the girls that he wants, but he's doing roofies with girls on the side. So there's something that's layered, and I think that picture has to show some of that, suggest some of that. A picture should suggest your essence. And also, and I think a lot of actors know this, maybe they don't, or maybe they do, and they just don't want to think about it. We all want the best picture of ourselves. We want the best lighting. We want to look the best. But some of us want to look better than we look. I mean, I would like to do that. But the fact is that as an actor, you want to look how you look the best, but you don't want to look too good. There's nothing, because it's waste of time on the agent and your time, because if you're going to walk into a casting office and the casting director picks up your picture and resume, and looks at the picture and looks at you and goes, wow, that does not look like the same person. That's a waste of everybody's time. And it's also putting negativity out there. I'd rather you find what you're right for, and niche that and understand that. So when you're going out on something, you're right for it. Therefore, you have the complete full chance of getting that job. And also, people get to know you for it. A lot of people always say to me, well, I don't want to stereotype myself, and I don't want to typecast myself. Well, if you're beginning in this business, in a way you do. You want to be able to have people understand who you are and what you're right for, so they can bring you into it. When you worry about that, a lot of the people who worry about that, mostly the typecasting, are people who are on hit TV shows and make millions and millions of dollars, and they leave the show, and then nobody, will hire them for something else. So I say you'll have millions of dollars, you make your own independent movie, and you can play a serial killer or whatever you want to play, a schizophrenic, and really dig down, and then you can break that stereotype. But right now, a young actor, a new actor, needs to find who they are and market that. Sure. I'm really excited because I have an app that is coming out, or might be out at this time. And what it is, I really did the app honestly because I wanted my students to have the availability to have my script analysis technique, my audition technique called WoFrame, at their fingertips. So wherever they're working on their sides, whether it's home or at a beach or a Starbucks, the fact is that they can pull out the app from their smartphone and work their material, because they need to work their material. Actors get lazy, or actors get pressured or panicked when they get those audition sides and they want to just go straight to the work. But actually you have to break down those sides. You have to know what you want. What's your obstacle? What are the feelings you're exploring? What's the relationship? What is your as if? The intentions that you're using, those active verbs. What's the moment before you start this audition? So this app, in a way, says, you got it now. You can work this. Plus it has voice and speech exercises in it. So many actors, and that's another thing with actors, they need to understand that their voice has to come from their core. So I've given a bunch of voice and speech exercises. I think I have every tongue twister on there. Plus you're able to insert the information about the audition into your phone, where you're going, the time, date. There's a map to tell you how to get there. It's all inclusive. I also have voiceover in there as well, meditation that I do in my classes that I feel would be helpful for actors. It's exciting to me, in a way, to do this app, because I feel like you got the information now. Now you just have to get past the fear, do the work, put yourself in there, and believe in yourself, and prepare. It's all about preparation. It's a constant flow of preparation. Whatever you do as an actor, everything you're doing is preparing for that opportunity to come. Because my belief is luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So you have to constantly prepare for that opportunity to come. And I do believe that it comes. I've been doing this for many years. And it's interesting because when I was an agent, and I was a young agent, I got to see the rise of actors. So, I have to tell you, I fully believe in the fact that if you stay in the game, it's going to happen. But you have to not only just stay in the game, you have to be preparing for when that opportunity comes. Right. It has that. It has that functionality to it, the scheduling thing. Because, but what it really has is the acting coach in a pocket, and I think that that's the most important aspect of it. And it also has this is great, because I'm a believer in active verbs, using active verbs to seduce, to manipulate, to crush, to those verbs. I think they're really effective, because what you're trying to do when you use intentions, I call them intentions. when you're trying to use those verbs, if my intention is to belittle you, I want you to feel small. So it gets me off of me in the audition and puts what I'm trying to do to you. Because I have my major want. Intentions actually is how you're going to get your want. It's how you're trying to affect the other person. So in my app, I have a very comprehensive intentions list. You're able to scroll down and find your intentions that would work best for you. I think that, once again, the idea of the app is to say, you got the information, just work it. Just work it. You know, whether you're a new actor coming to LA or an actor who's been in LA, in a way you still, I always believe that in a way you have to, actors have to reboot anyway. So if you've been in LA and you're like, oh, it's not happening or it's not happening fast enough, you need to reboot. You need to redo. You need to look at it. And I know it's a little more difficult opposed to the new actor coming, but it's the same thing going on. It really is the same thing. You know, I talked earlier about the CAG. That's a great combination, the actor who's been here and the new actor in the CAG, because the new actor, the actor who's been here will help the new actor out with information, and what the new actor will do is help the other actor reboot and inspire them to reboot. There's nothing like working and being there with a new actor. And that's why I don't mind in classes for there to be a nice mix of it. Just as long as in my studio there's tiers. You have to, you build upon, you go from the basic acting class to a scene study class to a cold reading class to the audition tech class, and then you put in other classes like comedy in there. You start to fill up their voice and speech, and that's something important actors need to do. I think that the actors need to be careful of certain things, though. One is procrastination. And procrastination is where opportunity is where procrastination is the grave in which opportunity is buried in. And the funny thing about it is that in our lives we all understand procrastination. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to prune my bushes out, and I haven't done that yet. So we all have that in our lives. But when it comes to your career, it can be really deadly. And there's a funny thing that I think that happens in LA. And my students know that I've spoken of this before, and actually it's in my Making in Hollywood book. But it's really true. The thing with LA is this. You get up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you go to the gym. Then you have lunch with a friend, and then you check you check the computer for certain things, And then you have an audition in Santa Monica. Before you know it, it's like 3 o'clock, you're in Santa Monica, you finish your audition, and then you're driving back, and by the time you get back into Hollywood or the Valley, it's like 4:15, and your day's coming to an end there. And you're thinking about what you're going to eat and what you're going to do that night, and all of a sudden, the thing about LA, opposed to New York, is that LA has such beautiful weather, and it's like the same weather all the time, is that in LA, you can go to bed one night, and you wake up the next morning, and it's 3 years later. And you think to yourself, what the hell have I done? And that is why it's really important to be active, to be constantly doing. It's all about the momentum of doing it. And it's all about not letting negativity get in your path too. And that's kind of an interesting thing. I asked a manager, I had a seminar at my studio where I had a bunch of managers and the actors could come and hear what they had to say. It was interesting. A lot of them talked about actors' negativity. I was like, wow, really? I know about that. I talk about it in my book, but I didn't really realize it was that prevalent. But the negativity that if you're not getting out, that you put towards your agent or manager, if you're not getting out, you need to say to your agent or manager, what is it that I can do to help you? What is it that I can do to help you? Instead of going, I want to get out, why am I not getting out? That just brings a lot of negativity, and they're not going to respond well to that. So I think you have to really check that negativity. There'll always be that person in my class, and they now know they can't do this, but who will come with the cloud of doom hanging over their head, and they will sit next to someone who's bright and optimistic, and they will try to drag them down. I don't do that. I think that's really important to leave that drama. There's no drama. The only drama that's happening in my class is in my class. I'm not interested in your horrible relationship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your mother or your roommate. late, who's not paying you or anything. You need to come in and you need to be a professional. And it's not that you need to. I mean, you can take if you're feeling sad and put that into your work. I'm not saying you need, but the drama and the craziness, it's no room for it in a classroom. And neither is it a room for it in the casting room. Very interesting. The classroom is a microcosm to what happens in the casting room, and a lot of actors don't understand that. I think it's important for actors to have a really good, well-rounded training, from scene study classes to cold reading classes to audition tech type of classes. I think it's important to have that. A lot of actors who have the comedy in them need to be doing comedic classes because now comedy is back. But I think it's important to constantly keep challenging yourself in your class. Keep putting as much energy into your work as possible in your class. That way you'll get the more out of it. Lateness is a big pet peeve in the business, and that's really odd to say, but then it's kind of, but here's my take. Early is on time is late is unacceptable. And you just need to practice that in every way in your business, from meeting people to agents meetings and to coming into class. Tardiness it runs rampant. It's crazy. It's you would think like, come on, it's fine. My girlfriend's late, or I get that, but because people don't necessarily manage their time well. Once again, they're not on a strict schedule. So I think that's important. I also think it's important, talking about a strict schedule, is to put yourself on a schedule. Is to put yourself on that schedule. That way it'll help you, and with relations with your parents as well. They'll know that this is your work time, that you're on the computer, and you have this 2 hours all about doing what you need to do on the computer and on these websites so you can get ahead. And letting them know actually lets them know that you're actually not just bartending, but you're actually working, or waitering, or whatever, in your survival job, but you're actually doing something for your career. And that kind of kills two birds with one stone. A lot of actors have problems with their parents because of the parents don't understand. Like, what are you doing out there? What's going on? Yeah, ScottSeditaActing.com. It's that easy. Google Scott Sedita. It's all over the place. So hopefully good. Who knows? I don't know. I work hard. We have a big studio. Our studio is divided into comedy and drama. There's many classes at our studio that you can take, and we're open to auditing, and we're open to meeting. We're a pretty friendly studio, and I try to keep our rates at a pretty good fare. I know what it is. I know what it's like out there for actors, and I'm proud of the work that we do. We have a lot of people on television now. In the last few years, I've worked with Josh Jamil, Chase Crawford, Emma Roberts, 50 Cent. He's a trip, 50 Cent. He's the most determined person I've ever met in my life. A lot of people who were on sitcoms and on primetime TV shows. Jeff Stoltz is on a new TV show. It makes me feel really good to watch them do the thing that they love, and that in some way I just had this little portion here to help them in that journey to get where they are, because I think that you have to first of all want it. You have to make sure that you want it and you're very specific with what it is that you want. And then you need to start the momentum. You need to constantly have that going for yourself. And you need to believe in yourself, because no one's going to believe in you like yourself. Now, your mother and your father might believe in you, but they're not going to be in the audition with you. Because when you walk into that audition room, you have to say to yourself, I believe in myself. I've worked really hard at doing what I need to do. I deserve that spot in that audition. I deserve to be here, and I deserve to be considered for this part. I think actors have to feel that way. Actors have to empower themselves with that. It's really important.